Hello everyone, welcome back to our CET exam preparation series on schools of criticism. In our last class, we explored structuralism, which focused on how meaning is constructed through different structures and systems. Today, we are moving one step further into the post-structuralism, a moment that questions those very structures of structuralism. So today's topic is post-structuralism. Meaning of post-structuralism. Post-structuralism means beyond structuralism. It doesn't completely reject the structuralism but rather criticizes its rigidity. As we know that the structuralism theory was based on certain structures, like a rigid structures which has to be followed while writing any text, may it be the prose or poetry. So it has to be followed. Those were very rigid and strict structures, but here post-structuralism is completely different from, or opposite, you can say opposite of structuralism. While structuralists believe meaning is stable within a system, post-structuralists argue that the meaning is unstable, shifting, and depends on the interpretation. So now here what post-structuralists believe is that meaning of the words in any of the literature is unstable. It keeps on changing after years. So it is unstable. Meaning of the words or phrases are unstable and it depends on interpretation. Here, what does it mean by interpretation? Interpretation is one's own thinking, one's own perception, one person's thoughts, perceptions, idea. Everyone has their unique ideas other than other people. So interpretation is nothing but our own thoughts and views on any particular thing. So according to the post-structuralist, they believe that the word's meaning keeps on changing because of the change in the perception or change in the view or interpretation of the people. So while structuralists believe meaning is stable within a system, whereas post-structuralists argue that the meaning is unstable, shifting, and depends on interpretation. In simple terms, structuralism says meaning is inside the structure and meaning is never fixed. It opens to many interpretations or many other different or various views of the people. Here, the next is the definition. So, according to the Jacques Derrida, there is nothing outside the text. What Jacques Derrida said is that there is nothing outside the text. This means everything we understand comes through language and interpretation, and language itself is not stable. Language itself is not stable. The meaning of the words or the meaning of particular words in any language keeps on changing according to the perception or the interpretation of the people. So next, post-structuralism therefore studies how texts deconstruct themselves or deconstruct, completely moving into different parts, is nothing but deconstructing themselves, and how meaning keeps changing and cannot be pinned down. The simplest meaning of the post-structuralism is post-structuralism means that there is no single fixed meaning in any text. Meanings can change depending on how different people read it or interpret it. It says that language is not stable, so meaning keeps shifting. Every reader can find new meanings, not just what the author intended. So, not only what the author means is only the thing which people can understand. People can make and present their own views on that particular thing. If a story is told to the people, like when people read the story wrote by a, then the people will present their own views, and which will be different from each person, will give a different view from the other person, but the writer's view might be very different from them. So reader can find new meanings, not what just the author intended. So structuralism is fixed meaning through structures, whereas post-structuralism has many meanings through interpretation. So the next is the historical background. Post-structuralism developed in the late 1960s to the late 1970s, mainly in France as a reaction to structuralism. It arose in the same intellectual climate but moved towards philosophy, language, and power. Next are the key figures in this post-structuralism era. They are the Jacques Derrida, Roland Barthes, Michel Foucault, Jacques Lacan, and Julia Kristeva. So they argued that structures are not fixed systems. They are fluid, unstable, and influenced by culture, history, and power relations. The main ideas of post-structuralism. The first is the instability of the meaning. Language never delivers a single final meaning. Each word refers to another word. Meaning keeps differing or keeps changing endlessly. Derrida called this process deference, meaning both difference and deferral, that is, deference. The next is the deconstruction. It was introduced by Jacques Derrida. Deconstruction is not only deconstruction, it's a method of reading texts closely to show contradictions and hidden meanings. It exposes how texts undermine their own claims of certainty. For example, a text may appear to promote justice but may also reveal injustice in its language. Both meanings coexist. So the third is the death of the author by the Roland Barthes. So what Roland Barthes declared is that the author is dead. Why he said that, we even read this in the last class, that is the second class of this preparation. So why Roland Barthes said that the author is dead? Because here the author is made passive. The author is made passive. That is why the Roland Barthes is saying that the author is dead. He meant that once a text is written, the author's intentions no longer control its meaning. Author wanted to tell something, but people, whoever are reading now those texts, may get some other idea or thoughts, or they have their own views, perceptions, interpretations. Readers give meaning to their text through their interpretation. The next is the fourth one, reader's role in meaning. Post-structuralism gives more power to the reader than to the writer. Here in post-structuralism, it gives more power to the reader than to the writer. Meaning is not created by the author but constructed by the readers. Hence, every reading can produce power, knowledge, and discourse. Michel Foucault studied how power and knowledge are linked. He said that the language, discourse, shapes what we believe to be truth. For example, ideas about madness or crime are controlled by social institutions through discourse. So what Michel Foucault wanted to say here is that he studied the power and knowledge. So according to him, the ideas about like madness or crime scenes or anything, different people give their different views. Like the social institutions or the social groups, they present their own views and thoughts different from the other people. So it is not necessary that each and every person should have the same view or same thinking or same perception. So the next is the sixth one, psychoanalytic influence. Jacques Lacan reinterpreted Freud's psychoanalysis using language. He said that the unconscious is constructed like a language, again unstable and fragmented. Hence, even the self is not fixed, it's constructed by language and desire. So as in the Freud's theory of psychoanalysis, so there were different stages of psychoanalysis. So here also Jacques Lacan interpreted that, likewise in that theory, in the unconscious mind of a person there are many thoughts. Like for a same particular thing there might be difference in his own thoughts. Like for a particular scene or a particular crime scene, it may be he used to think something bad about it, but then his perceptions or his views changed after knowing the complete truth. So then what happened is the thoughts or the views or perceptions of that particular person about that particular scene changed. So within a person there might be different views existing into fragment. It may be broken into fragments, different fragments, which is unstable. Sometimes he thinks good, sometimes he thinks bad about that particular thing only. So hence even the self is not fixed, it's constructed by the language and the desire. The next is the application to the literature. When applying post-structuralism to literature, we focus on contradictions, ambiguities and paradoxes in the text. So a study how language creates and destroys meaning, question any fixed interpretation. So if there are fixed structures, then how can a language create and destroy meaning? How can new meanings arise in that particular language? How new words can be found in that language? So if there is fixed pattern, no new words can be entering into the language. The next is the major thinkers and their works. So here is a tabular form. Here you can refer about these 5 thinkers: Jacques Derrida, Roland Barthes, Michel Foucault, Jacques Lacan and Julia Kristeva. So what Jacques Derrida's contributions are: he worked on deconstruction and deference, and his key works is of grammatology in 1967. Now comes the Roland Barthes. His contribution is that reader's role and death of the author. He said that the author is made passive or death of the author. So it was nearly in 1970s. Next is the Michel Foucault. He worked on the power, knowledge and discourse, and his key works are the Archaeology of Knowledge in 1969 and Discipline and Punish in 1975. Next is the Jacques Lacan. His contributions is like psychoanalytic theory in language. So when a question arises like who gave the psychoanalytic theory in language, the name must be Jacques Lacan. So critics in 1966 is his keyword. And now comes the Julia Kristeva. Contributions are intertextuality, semiotics and feminism. And the key work is The Revolution in the Poetic Language, 1974. These are the most important key works of important or famous thinkers and their contribution. This tabular form must be thoroughly referred. With exam point of view, if you see, it's very important. So let's move on to the next. For example, in the Shakespeare's Hamlet, a structuralist studies the revenge structure, but a post-structuralist asks, what if Hamlet's hesitation is not weakness but resistance? Thus, meaning become multiple and open-ended. Key concepts are the summary. Deconstruction, reading text to reveal hidden opposites and contradictions. Deference, meaning endlessly deferred, never complete. Next comes the discourse, language as power, Foucault, said by the Foucault. So intertextuality, texts are connected with others, said by Kristeva. Death of the author, meaning belongs to the readers, not the writers. Now comes the criticism of the post-structuralism. So here also some people criticized the post-structuralism pattern. Why? Because of some reasons. So first reason is too abstract and philosophical. It is too abstract and philosophical, can't be solely and wholly depend on this type of structure. So it is too abstract. The next is makes meaning endlessly uncertain. Third, ignores authorial and historical context. Fourth is sometimes difficult to apply practically. And the fifth is the critics argue it leads to relativism, no stable truth. Conclusion. Post-structuralism changed how we read, write, and interpret texts. It taught us that meaning is not fixed but constructed, shifting with context, culture, and interpretation. It encourages us to look beyond the obvious and question all assumptions. So while structuralism gave us structure, post-structuralism gave us freedom, freedom to read, freedom to rethink, and freedom to reinterpret. The quick revision mnemonic is Dr. Lift, Dr. Lift. D is Derrida, deconstruction and deference. R is reader's role. So what is reader's role? Death of the author. That means the reader is passive. L is the Lacan, language and unconscious mind was studied. I is the instability of meaning. Meaning is unstable. That means a word can give various meanings according to the interpretations or the perceptions of a person. Next comes the F of Foucault. What was discussed by Foucault? Power and discourse. The next is the text. So intertextual and open-ended text can be seen in post-structuralism pattern. Next are the expected questions for the exam point of view. So first is who introduced deconstruction? It is Derrida. There is nothing outside the text. Who said this? It was said by Derrida. What is meant by the death of the author? It was said by Barthes, and it means that the author is being passive. Who linked the language with the power and discourse? Foucault linked it. So define deference. Difference and one more word is there. You can refer the notes. So what does post-structuralism say about meaning? This you have to answer it. So to conclude, this post-structuralism opened the doors for multiple interpretations of any text. So it taught us that the meaning is not only fixed or final, but always changing with the reader and the culture and the context. So while structuralism searched for structure, here the post-structuralism celebrates the uncertainty and flexibility in the meaning of words. So it reminds us that every text can be read in many ways, and that's what keeps literature alive, dynamic, and endlessly fascinating. So that is the essence of post-structuralism. Thanks for watching this class and stay tuned for the next session. So where we'll explore the other fascinating schools of criticism. Do like, share and subscribe for more such videos. Thanks for watching.